Hi everyone, thank you for joining me. I absolutely love patterned paper, but I have a little bit of a problem because I'm not inclined to use it, and so I've amassed a bit of a collection. I finally received Simon's March card kit. International mail is still slow going. And of course, what did it include? A beautiful set of papers, and I was determined that I was going to use every one of them. And that's exactly what I did in these 3 cards just in time for Easter. So let's get hopping with Simon's Hoppy Days Ahead. To create the card fronts for 2 of the cards, I selected 3 papers and trimmed them down to 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. I actually ran out of paper and had to sneak in some blue cardstock. For each of the 2 sets of papers, the one that will be sitting on the top side of the card front, it is being die cut with the 3rd largest die from Simon's Nested Domed Arches. The arch has not been centered. It is positioned near the top end of the card. When the 2 panels are aligned, the next smallest die is centered in the die cut opening. A little bit of purple tape holds the die in place to ensure that it does not shift as the second panel is run through the die cutter. This results in a framed edge around the arch to highlight it. To create a bit of dimension, some oversized foam panels are going to be die cut using the smallest of the 2 dies. The die cut opening in the second piece of patterned paper is used to position the die. The panel with the largest arch is adhered on top of the panel with the smaller one. The stack panel is adhered to the foam one, making sure that the edges of the arch are aligned. The panels were set aside under some weight to dry for a while. Anything that is mounted on foam can easily slip out of alignment. After about 10 minutes, I trim off the excess foam with a large pair of shears. I like to trim it at a slight angle so that it undercuts it. The foam back panels are then mounted on the 3rd piece of pattern paper that has been chosen for the background. They are then adhered to card bases that are A2 size, 4 1/4 inches by 5 1/2 inches. For the 3rd card, one of the arch die cuts has been mounted on foam and then onto some patterned paper that has been die cut with a scallop die. The panel and the arch have been mounted onto an A2 size card base. The bunny images in this stamp set are absolutely adorable, and of course I have to use them all. They are being stamped on patterned paper. I'm telling you, I'm using it all. Using Simon's Intense Black ink, 3 of the bunnies are stamped on a light floral, the other 2 on a pink marble patterned paper. For this last paper, I oriented the bunnies so that their heads would be sitting in the lighter portion of the pattern. All of the bunnies were mounted on sheet foam and then left to dry under some weight. I gave them several minutes of drying time and then started to do some very simple shading using Copic markers. For the bunnies on the pink marble paper, I'm using R20 and R22. This is just some very quick and simple shading, focusing on the base of the bunny, under the neckline, the base of the ears, and the sides of the head. Using flicking motions, I apply first the dark tone R22 and then finish off with the light tone R20. For the head, which I had positioned in the lighter portion of the patterned paper, I also used the Zero blender just to fade out that light pink. And as usual, if you see anything that tickles your fancy, links have been provided to the products that I've used in the description of this YouTube video or on my blog at bonniecarolee.com. For the rest of the bunnies, I first colored in the inside of their ears using the R20. The shading for these bunnies was done the very same way as the pink ones, except I just used one marker. A very pale warm gray was used, W0. Just a little bit of shading really adds some nice dimension to these patterned paper bunnies. And one of the bunnies is holding a carrot, and of course that has to be finished off with a little bit of green and orange. This stamp set does have coordinating dies. Unfortunately, I don't have them, so I am fussy cutting them. If I did have the dies, I would not have mounted the bunnies on foam first. I would cut the bunnies out, then create foam die cuts and mount them afterwards. One of the smaller dies in the Nested Domed Arches die set was used to cut both foam and patterned paper. Sentiments from Hoppy Days Ahead were chosen for the secondary sentiment and stamped with Simon's Intense Black ink. This sentiment that I'm stamping, the words are the negative space, and I'm always very careful when I stamp images like this. I err on the side of caution and do several stampings of light coats of ink. Too much ink applied at once can result in those words literally being obliterated. Aside from a few scraps here and there, I'm at that point where I have used just about all of the pattern paper that has come with this kit. For a couple of the cards, I've already cut out these small arches a couple of times trying to find the right fit. I don't think I have enough of the right pattern for a third, so there's no room for error. For the main sentiment, Simon's Easter has been used to die cut both white cardstock and foam. I like my main sentiments to have dimension. It really helps them to stand out. And when mounting them on foam, I like to leave the foam in its backing and only remove the center of the letters. Glue is applied to the foam die cut, and I don't need to worry if it gets onto the background. The die cut in the foam leaves an impression, making it very easy to align the cardstock one to it. The sentiments will need some drying time before the excess foam can be removed. And so now's a good time to add in the small dome in the center of the larger one, and also to adhere the bunnies. Because the bunnies are foam backed and only a portion of their bodies will be adhered to the card because they will overhang the arch, I'm going to pop some weight on them after I adhere them to ensure there's good contact between the cardstock and the foam. When removing the excess foam from the stacked die cuts, a craft pick comes in very handy. I wanted the main sentiment to have not only lots of shine, but texture as well. The sentiment was given a good coating of glue and then laid flat into a product called diamond dust. It is not fine particles as the name might suggest. This pretty embellishment is rectangular, flat, and glass-like. This product gave the sentiment lots of texture. I really wanted to bump up the shine though. When the sentiments were dry, I dabbed on some more glue and then added some chunky clear glitter. The texture from the diamond dust was maintained, but the addition of that glitter just took it to the next level. And while that glue is drying, I'm going to go ahead and add 2 little pom-poms for the tails on the bunnies that are facing backwards. And with a few minutes of drying time, the sentiments are ready to be added on to each of the cards. Because one of the arches is dimensional and the other 2 are recessed, I just double check to make sure that I'm applying glue to where it is going to have contact with the card. Nuvo Glitter Drops White Blizzard is applied to all of the insides of the bunny's ears. These cards are going to be finished up with some confetti. I'm picking out some colors from a pretty rainbow pastel mix by Studio Kasha. And once the confetti goes on, I automatically reach for the Nuvo Crystal Drops Morning Dew. At first, I'm going to apply it to the 3 little hearts that were colored in with a Copic marker R20 on one of the cards. And then I make my way to the confetti. To get a nice smooth dome with no air bubbles, before I start applying the drops, I give it a good shake to make sure that it's all settled down into the nozzle end. Try to keep the bottle completely vertical and then give it a nice gentle squeeze. The perfect finishing touch to these 3 Easter cards featuring Simon Says stamps, Hoppy Days Ahead. Well, I can hardly believe it. I used all of the pattern paper that came in the kit, so maybe I can refer to myself now as a reformed collector of patterned paper. Admittedly, this was a gorgeous paper pack, so it was easy to use. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and as always, I appreciate your visit.